Today, we are diving into a massive and kind of scary disruption in the developer world. We're talking about a sudden, totally mysterious government blockade against one of the most popular platforms out there, Supabase.
Seriously, just picture that for a second. Your app is running, your customers are happy, and then boom, out of nowhere, your entire backend just goes dark. And this isn't a server crash, it's not a bug, it's a government order.
And listen, we are not talking about some small niche service here. Supabase, the big open source rival to Firebase, was just valued at $5 billion. This is a giant in the developer ecosystem. Which sounds like some crazy hypothetical is, right now, a harsh reality. This is the exact situation facing tons of startups and developers all around India. And honestly, it raises some serious questions for anyone building software today.
So what on earth actually happened? Well, it all kicked off with a sudden digital blackout that sent some major shockwaves through India's whole tech scene.
So on February 24th, an order was issued to block Supabase, and the result was immediate chaos. Access just got super patchy. It depended on what internet provider you were using. For startups, this was a total disaster. Production environments were just broken, and one founder even said that new user signups from India just stopped. The very core of their business was frozen solid overnight.
And the scale here is really important. This wasn't some fringe market. India is Supabase's fourth largest source of traffic. It makes up nearly 10% of its global user base. We're talking about 365,000 visits in January alone. This is a significant blow.
So how can a government just turn off a major tech platform like that? Well, this brings us to the mechanism behind the block, which is, as powerful as it is secretive.
The order came down under something called Section 69A of India's IT Act. Now, this law gives the government incredibly broad powers to block pretty much any online content for a whole host of reasons, everything from national security to just public order. It's a very powerful tool for controlling the digital space.
And this, right here, is the real heart of the problem. There has been no public statement, no official reason given for the block, nothing. Was it a single app that broke a rule, a cybersecurity thing? Nobody has a clue. And that silence just creates this massive vacuum of uncertainty. By the way, if you're finding this breakdown valuable for understanding the risks in the tech world, take a moment to like this video, drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to @BrandTechOff below for more deep dives.
This quote from Ramanjit Singh Chima at the digital rights group Access Now, it just perfectly captures the chilling effect of all this. He points out that this ambiguity has grave consequences. I mean, how can you build a business if you have no idea which platforms are considered safe from one day to the next?
All right, let's switch gears to the practical side of this. In a situation like this, your first instinct is to find a workaround, right? But as developers quickly found out, the usual fixes, they weren't going to cut it this time. Okay, here's a really crucial detail that makes this whole thing so much more complicated. The main marketing website, supabase.co, is still accessible. The block specifically targets the underlying developer infrastructure, the APIs, the databases, the stuff that actually makes the apps run. It was like a surgical strike.
So this created a huge disconnect. Supabase suggested that developers could just use a VPN or change their DNS. And sure, a developer can do that, but a founder? You can't realistically ask your entire user base in India to download and configure a VPN just to use your app. It's not a viable solution when you're live in production.
This is where we really need to zoom out, because the Supabase block isn't some isolated one-off event. It is the latest move in a much larger pattern of digital control.
Just look at this timeline. The Indian government has used Section 69A to block or restrict major global platforms before. Vimeo back in 2014, parts of GitHub in 2015, Pastebin in 2018. There's a really clear, established precedent for this exact kind of action against core developer tools.
And what this whole pattern reveals is a fundamental, systemic issue that every single founder and developer really needs to understand, and that is the concept of sovereign risk. If your tech stack relies on a centralized cloud provider, it is, by its very nature, vulnerable to the laws and political whims of whatever country it operates in.
So this brings us to the ultimate lesson of this whole situation. How do you build resilient applications in a world of digital borders? This is the sovereign risk dilemma.
A lot of developers choose platforms like Supabase because they're open source, right? We think it gives us more control. But here is the key, hard-hitting takeaway. Open source does not equal sovereign immunity. If you're using a managed cloud platform, you are still on their infrastructure.
So what are the real defenses? What can you actually do? Well, it essentially boils down to two main architectural choices. First, there's self-hosting, which means taking on the headache of running the software yourself on servers that you control. The second option is a multi-cloud strategy, diversifying your infrastructure across different providers and different legal jurisdictions to avoid a single point of failure.
And this is the bottom line. No matter how amazing a platform is, if you build your business on a centralized, managed cloud service, you are outsourcing a critical degree of control. You are, ultimately, at the mercy of telecom providers and government ministries. The Supabase blockade is a massive wake-up call for the entire tech industry. It forces all of us to ask a really difficult question. In a world where digital borders are becoming more and more real every single day, is your tech stack, the very foundation of your business, truly